So, good evening and welcome. Um, this is the second session in the Transforming Problems module of Discovering Buddhism, put on by the good folks at Tutanor. So, we have just done one session thus far in this module. And so let us begin just with a little bit of a review. So, all right. Some of the main themes that we covered last week. I started the session as I always like to, no matter what I'm teaching, starting off with the kind of fundamental starting point of Buddhism, which, as we mentioned, isn't the Buddha, but rather is an observation that all beings, and not just humans, but all sentient beings, all living beings, have a desire to avoid suffering and experience well-being. And then we went a bit further into the kinds of happiness and suffering that we do experience. You got your first Tibetan lesson about the distinction between the Chiropa, right, the outsider, the outer being, and the Nangpa, the inner being. And so we were saying basically, especially in this modern age with the rise of technology, there's been many advancements that have led to a lot of improvements in the external material world. In general, the average lifespan has gone up. Um, Many factors have made life more convenient, and well, we are not denying the progress that science and technology has brought. However, this external development and material development alone, we see as insufficient to bring the kind of deep and lasting happiness and well-being that we are seeking. And well, although there has been a lot of development in terms of the external material world, still we see in a lot of the developed world the rise in incidence of depression, anxiety, and other kinds of mental illnesses. So in general, um, then there's a statement from Aryadeva, who in the 400 stanzas, which was written, maybe 1,800 years ago, he wrote that for the those who are less well off, their suffering is mainly physical, but those who are well off, their suffering is mainly mental. But every day, the world is destroyed or sort of plagued by either of these two sufferings. So, yeah, here, even with the rise in material development, still the anxiety and stress and depression and the feeling of purposelessness and hopelessness that can come in this modern time, especially these days, still needs uh, a different strategy than just the material external development alone. And because of that, then we were talking about, Dharma, and the purpose of Dharma is to, subdue the mind, to transform the mind. And we do that through training. So just like when we engage in physical training, exercise, working out, we will put forth effort and sort of develop our physical bodies. In the same way, through training the mind, we are similarly developing our kind of inner qualities and faculties of mind. Um, And so, on one level, all of the Buddhism is a mind training one way or another. And we can even think of meditation as the sort of technology we use to train the mind. So, although you have had many different modules here, there was one module particularly about meditation. And I think in that context, you would have learned that the Tibetan word for meditation actually is gom, which has a connotation of familiarization or habituation. So as we are creatures of habit, the more we do something, the easier it then becomes to do, right? That's the whole point of forming good habits and why it's so difficult to get out of, not so good habits, right? So here we use our meditation practice to um, develop and habituate ourselves with new and more positive or more virtuous ways of thinking and try also to get out of some of the less constructive, even harmful attitudes and ways of thinking that have run our lives for a long time, especially before we met with the Dharma teachings, right? So, although Buddhism in general is mind training, and we transform our experiences through transforming the mind, then in particular in this context, we are then especially focusing on the Mahayana mind training, which is, well, the key distinguishing characteristic of a Mahayana practitioner is the presence of this attitude, this altruistic attitude of bodhichitta, the wish to achieve enlightenment so one can be of utmost benefit for all sentient beings. And in order to do that, we need to come to uh, cherish others even more than ourselves. So that will be the main focus of our mind training in the Mahayana context. Um, and we were going to then use this 8 verses of mind training text as the kind of spine or the outline, which we will then, cover sequentially over the coming weeks. Last week, we covered just the first stanza on that, which could be seen as a overall summary of the entire Mahayana practice. Um, and now we will continue with that in a few minutes. But first, I did just want to, yeah, last week we talked about the Lamrim, and particularly we're talking about these 3 types of practitioner who were distinguished by their goal that they have for their practice. And therefore, since they each have different goals for their practice, they then employ different methods, right? Different techniques to achieve the different goals that they seek, right? You remember this? Yes. Okay. But to put it even in another way, perhaps a bit more pithy, there is this one stanza that's very nice that I wanted to share with you. Oh, I see, I see, I see. Okay, sorry. Before we get into that, just a little reflection, okay? Because we were talking a lot about happiness and well-being. And usually I do this at the beginning of a course, but just at the beginning of this session now, I wanted to open it up to you, right? So when we think about our lives, maybe when we are talking with a friend we haven't spoken to in a while, or today's Monday, right? So when you go into work on Monday and people ask, "Oh, how was your weekend?" Right? And you give that answer, "Oh, I had a great weekend," or "Yeah, my life's going really well." Then as you start to explain what are the reasons that you give for, my weekend was great. Or if it wasn't going well, then what are the reasons you say for that? Just take a few minutes and just think about that. Did any of you go into work this morning and a colleague asked you that? Okay. Does someone want to volunteer? Or I can give you my answer too. Okay. All right. Well, I had a great weekend. Yesterday, as many of you know, was Mother's Day, right? So happy Mother's Day to all of you out there. Uh, and I took my beloved mother out to a nice brunch. It's a great place in Hawaii. I can recommend it to all of you. Kaimana Farms. It's one of these farm to table kind of places, all locally sourced produce, very tasty, very healthy. They had a lot of vegan options and pretty reasonable price, you know, and were able to get in. A lot of places have, very difficult to get a reservation for Mother's Day, but we got in. The food was good, reasonable price. Waitress was nice, and I also invited one of my mom's friends, and we had a nice conversation. It was a really, really nice time. There we go. Yeah, I could imagine. If okay, a couple weekends ago. I also, tried to take my aunt out, and this wasn't as nice. It wasn't a good weekend because although we had made the reservation for this particular restaurant, I'm not going to tell you the name of this one. We made the reservation, and okay, so my aunt is 87 years old, and she walks with a cane, and so we were, it was in downtown Honolulu. We go and we have to park in a parking structure, and then we walk a few blocks to the restaurant. And, she's having trouble. So we have to, stop a few times. She's out of breath as we go to the restaurant. We finally get there. This is one of her favorite places. We get there, and there's a sign, restaurant closed for a private event. Can you believe that? Yes. We had made a reservation. They had our number. They didn't call us to say, hey, you know what? Sorry, we have a private, party coming in like this. Not even the decency to do that. I'm here with my beloved mother. I'm here with my, 87-year-old aunt like that. So then, okay, it's downtown Honolulu. All right. There must be some other restaurants around, right? Oh, yeah. So then, no worries. Let's go 2 blocks. Again, my aunt having to stop next block and the next block. We get to a place, our second favorite restaurant in downtown. It was Sunday, so closed for lunch. It opens only for dinner. Disappointment, disappointment. So finally, then my mom goes to the parking garage, gets the car, picks us up because my aunt can't walk anymore. We finally go, kind of across town to a place we at least know is open. It was okay, right? All right. So, sorry, I'm just sharing. In the car ride home, then, right? In the car ride home, we had a nice time finally, but then I was debating with my mother whether we should call up that first restaurant and ask to, speak to the manager, how unprofessional it is, all this. We were debating, right? So these little things, they happen, yes, but then, it can be, you know, not just easily let go. But then even hours later, or maybe days later, or even years later, depending on what it is, then it also, affects the mind, right? Yeah. Okay. So how was your weekend? I hope you guys also had nice Mother's Day brunch. Yes, Christine.
Oh, I was gonna. You can hear me okay?
I can, yes. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Well, I would say for this Mother's Day, we decided to go on Saturday instead of Sunday because last year we went for Mother's Day. All the restaurants were really busy, and no matter which one we could get to, we couldn't go in. So I didn't get Mother's Day breakfast. We went to Subway and just to one. But this Wednesday, I had a really good one. We went Saturday. We went to IHOP. We had to wait a little bit. We still had the breakfast, and my son took me to the movie, so I had a very good one. So, what makes you have a good week? Um, Good weekend or good is when things are good. You get what you want. Bad thing is when sometimes that you don't want. You know, yeah.
That
No,
is putting it very succinctly. I love that. I'm talking for like 10 minutes. And what you said is just in two sentences. What makes your life good is you get what you want. What makes your life not good is you don't get what you want. Yes.
or
Okay.
you get what you don't want too.
Or
That
you get
happens
or
too.
you get what you don't want. Right?
Yeah, yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
All right.
I guess I can go. I'm I'm Sierra. I'm the one talking, but um, my Mother's Day was a little. I kind of spent it by myself and my son. My mom lost her husband, my father, 2, 3 years ago, so she wasn't really in the best of moods, and it's been kind of rough lately, honestly. She did. I was kind of mindful that she lost her mother years ago, 15 years ago. So my grandmother. So um, yeah, I'm just kind of been just working with her transformation, honestly, as she's getting, older, and yeah, I'm just there for her emotionally. So
Right.
yeah.
Wait, so did you choose then not to be with her yesterday because you thought her kind of bad mood would affect yours? Or you invited her and she said no? Or what was the
We kind of went downtown because I had an errand to run, and she was kind of like in a hurry to get home in a sense. So it was a nice day, and yeah,
Yeah,
I
okay.
guess I'm in a phase of not allowing negative energy to bring me down. So yeah.
Okay. Well, very good. So, yeah, thank you. Thank you for sharing that with us. So, in general, I think this is always a good thing to just check internally. And yeah. Also, when you meet a friend and you give them an update, you haven't seen them for some months, and they're asking how your life is. Maybe it'll be like, "Oh, things are going great. I got a promotion, or I finally closed on the new house, or I met a new partner, or I don't know, I finished the marathon. Whatever it is that like you're sharing, my life is going great, right? Think about that. Think about what you say. And then when things aren't going great, right? Oh yeah, I'm going through a rough time. My this family member is sick, this family member has died, this person broke up with me, whatever it might be, whatever those reasons are, just sort of make a mental note, right? And then this can be a sort of, you know, mm, the starting point by which we see how we are thinking about how our life is going well or not, right? Yeah, I think it's very important. I think it's very important because, well, this brings us to the next slide. You see, there's this very beautiful encapsulation of Dharma. You probably have heard of this or seen this before, right? Parting from the four attachments. Have you seen this? Uh, Shempa Shidrel. So this Manjushri is the Buddha of wisdom. And Sachen Kunga Ningpo, he actually was a very famous Sakya master. And he would have direct visions of Manjushri. And Manjushri, this Buddha of wisdom, you sometimes see him holding the sword, right? Then just uttered these four lines, which again encapsulates the entire Dharma, right? So there he says, if you cling to this life, you're not a Dharma practitioner. If you cling to samsara, you do not have renunciation. If you cling to your own purpose, you don't have bodhichitta. And if you cling to a self, you do not have the right view, right? So this first one is what I wanted to talk about, right? Clinging to this life, right? So in some ways, this is the kind of gateway to being considered even a Dharma practitioner. Um, I'll stop the share for a second. There's a very famous story, perhaps one of my very favorite Dharma stories that Lama Zopa Rinpoche was very fond of telling. So back in Tibet, there was this great master Jom Tumpa. Have you heard of Jom Tumpa? So you've heard of Atisha. His main disciple was Jom Tumpa. Actually, then the successive reincarnations of Jom Tumpa then became, like later, the Dalai Lama. So when you trace back the Dalai Lama's, previous lives, one of his previous lives was Jom Tumpa. Now, Jom Tumpa was a great practitioner. He was also a layperson, right? So, not a monk, but a layperson, but a great practitioner. And the story goes that one day he was in a monastery, right? And you've seen probably the circumambulation, walking around a clockwise way, either stupas or the monastery. Um, the point is doing that is very meritorious. One collects a lot of merit by doing that. So in one such monastery, there was an old man who was performing these, circumambulations with a lot of devotion and faith. And Jom Tumpa tells him, he says, "Oh, it's great that you're doing circumambulation, but it would be better if you practice Dharma." Okay. So then the man's a bit confused, and so he said, "Oh, okay, practicing Dharma. Okay, Dharma. Okay, that's the text, right? The Dharma is the text. So I got to be reading the text." So then he's, sitting down in the monastery. He has those Tibetan texts. He's reading the sutras, trying to think about the meaning, all this. Then Drum Tumpa comes up again, says, "Oh, it's great that you're reading the text, but it'd be better if you practice Dharma." Okay. Then I'm like, oh, what? Okay. Oh. So you're reading, okay, that's a little bit lower. I gotta meditate. Okay, meditate. That's the real one. So then the man, he's in the courtyard, sitting like this, very nice, meditating. Drone Tumpa comes up again and says, "Oh, it's great that you're meditating, but it'd be better if you practice Dharma." So finally the man's like, "Whoa, what do you mean by practicing Dharma?" And what Drone Tumpa said is, give up this life. Give up this life, right? So very, very tasty. You see, because we're saying it's not the action itself, that causes something to be virtuous or non-virtuous, but it is the motivation with which we undertake the action that determines whether it's virtue or non-virtue, or if it is virtuous, how virtuous, right? Right? So you can see there was this example given in The Liberation in the Palm of Your Hand, written by Pabonka Rinpoche, where he says there's, four people. And you can imagine, oftentimes, this will happen when I'm teaching in, Nepal or India. you go into town and there might be a beggar there, right? So if four people who are together then encounter a beggar, okay, one of them might think, ooh, if I give something to the beggar, then these other three people that I'm with, they'll think I'm a nice, generous guy, right? They'll come to like me more. My reputation will be better, all this. And so they give. Okay. All right. Second person, they might have received a few teachings, right, about karma. And then they know, or they might have heard, oh, if you want to be wealthy, the cause of that is practicing generosity. So with a thought, I want to be wealthy, then to give to the beggar. Okay, that's number two. Okay, all right. Then the third person, they have this thought, well, you know what? Even if I get wealthy, that's still problematic. I'll have a lot of anxiety, like is my, property values or my stock portfolio going down? Like, am I going to be taxed or whatever, right? So they don't want to experience that kind of suffering. So they then, want to be free of all of samsara. So then they say, okay, I want to be free from samsara. So then they give the charity. And then the last person with the mind of bodhichitta, purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. I need to achieve enlightenment. Therefore, I need to complete the collections of merit and transcendental wisdom. Therefore, although the giver, the gift, and the act of giving is all empty of inherent existence, nonetheless, I give this for the benefit of all sentient beings so we can all achieve enlightenment. Okay? Oh, yeah. Right? So now, someone from the outside, they see these four people, and the physical action is just the same, right? But because the mindset is different, then the ripening effect is totally different. Understand? So the first person, actually, because they had a worldly motivation to get a good reputation, well, then there's a debate. Is that even dharma? Is that even a dharmic action? Is that a virtuous action? I am not sure. If you were to debate it and you were to say, no, that's not a virtuous action, you would then just cite this. If you're clinging to this life, you're not a Dharma practitioner. That was done with clinging attachment to this life, right? Anyway, so you'll see um, this is the sort of main focus then. If you uh, then put these four verses, right, or these four lines, you can relate them to the three type of practitioners in Lam Rim, right? So this first line is for uh, the small school practitioner. And those of you who have done the other modules, you'll see, the whole thing about the meditation on death and impermanence, right? The last point is at the time of death, the only thing that matters is our Dharma practice, is our virtue. Our friends don't come with us. Our wealth doesn't come with us. Our body doesn't come with us. You remember this, the 9-point death meditation, right? So because of that, because all these things don't go with us to the next life, and the only thing that will matter is our virtue, then this meditation on death and impermanence will sort of impel us, remind us what is truly important in life. And therefore, to sort of give up the worldly concerns of this life is the first and the sort of heart practice of initial practitioner of Dharma. So then in the kind of course syllabus for this module, then we're also supposed to go through the so-called eight worldly concerns. So we get a better idea what it actually means to give up this life. Okay? So I think this is review for most of you, but in general, these eight worldly concerns, it's four opposing pairs, right? So we desire and develop attachment to gain, and then we avoid and try to avoid and develop aversion to loss, right? Then we have pleasure and pain, right? Praise and blame, and fame, or good reputation, or disrepute or bad reputation. Yeah. So then um, we can then go back to these questions, and basically the way we think about our life now, I don't know, is it just my life is going well because I'm getting these things on the left-hand side and I'm not getting these things on the right-hand side? And when my life is going not so well, it's because I'm getting these things on the right-hand side? Is it just that simple? Ugh. Maybe, maybe. You know, just again, I'm in the same boat with all of you, okay? I mean, even I shared my weekend with you, right? Another way of saying it could be, I had a great weekend because even you say the same thing. I took my mother out for brunch, and I know from the teachings on karma that one's mother is a karmically potent recipient for generosity. So I knew I accumulated a lot more merit by offering her brunch. Huh? Therefore, it was a great weekend. I created a lot of virtue by practicing in relation to my mother. Huh? Or even the previous weekend. Oh, it was a great weekend. There was a snafu at the restaurant. They forgot our reservation and all this. But I saw myself started to get irritated and a bit angry, and I wanted to call the manager and all that. But I practiced patience. I let it go. Huh? Therefore, it was a great weekend. Do you talk like that? You try that next Monday. You go into work. Someone asks you how your weekend was. You say, I had a great weekend. I practice patience. Okay. Anyway, very, very interesting. So here is the sort of source text in the Indian treatises about the eight worldly concerns. So you'll see this Nagarjuna, I think the letter to a friend. He says, by the eight worldly concerns, we mean worldly thoughts of acquiring or not. So that's gain or loss. Comfort or discomfort, that means pain and pleasure. Fame or notoriety, right? A good reputation, bad reputation, or and praise or criticism. So keep a level head. These are not subjects for your thought, right? So what happens, this level-headedness, okay? Right now, when we get those things on the the good side, then we are like, oh yeah, so good. And then on the other side, we have so much disappointment, and that's how anger can arise, you know. Um, so that is not level-headed, right? Um, so in general, I think remember last week we were talking about one of the difficulties of having our happiness or suffering dependent on these external objects is because we have relatively low control about the external world, because and these things in the external world are all impermanent in nature. If our happiness is only derived from getting what we want, or avoiding what we don't want, then it's very difficult because we can't control what happens to us, right? There is this beautiful statement in Shantideva. uh, giving this analogy. Um, so, in ancient India, well, he puts it like this. Where could one find enough leather to cover the entire world, right? But by wearing sandals, then it serves the same purpose. Similarly, how could I subdue all the unruly beings in the world? But if I subdue my mind, what need is there for anything else? Something like this, right? Right. So analogy is, I like it so much. It's very vivid, right? Because the world in general has, stones and thorns, and sometimes the ground is hot. You don't want to experience that suffering on your feet. One strategy in general could be just then cover it in leather so you don't have to experience those things. Or you wear sandals. And by wearing sandals, then anywhere you go and walk, then you're protected, right? So then, then to liken it to the mind, right? All these thorny people, thorny situations, um, no way could we get everyone to do everything we like all the time, say all the nice things, do everything we like. So instead of trying to do that, then if we are able to sort of create these mental sandals for our mind where it's subdued and then able to remain level, right? Level-headed, no matter what the external circumstances are, then we're we're good. What do you think? So in one way, in a very real way, all the Dharma is we're making these mental sandals. Okay. All right. So now there's a doubt. There's a doubt. Okay, so now I don't know if any of you were thinking this, but if you did, it'd be good. Because this doubt itself is brought up in the great treatise on the stages of the path to enlightenment by Lama Tsongkhapa. So here he frames the doubt in this way, saying, in the scriptures, it says that you must turn your mind away from all the excellent things of psychic existence. Someone could misinterpret this and think that it is improper to develop an interest in high status as a human or deity in which body, resources, and the like are excellent, because it is within psychic existence. You get the doubt? Right? So on the one hand, we're saying, hey, all this, gain, fame, high status, all that, that is, if you want that, you're not a Dharma practitioner, right? But does that mean that we, should, I don't know, not want those things at all? Hmm? Okay. Yes, we have a raised hand. And is that, I don't know how to, how do you pronounce that?
It's a short form, but you can say whack.
Is what?
Whack, whack.
Whack.
Yep.
Okay. Yeah. What do you think?
Yeah, so I was gonna say that oh right. Okay. Basically I think the important part of this is to remember that if you want something, right, and there's a desire that's within you, if you're sort of shunning yourself away from that because you heard a teaching, the it it depends on what's actually happening, because if you're creating resistance within yourself and you try to discipline yourself in a way like, let me turn away from this, but that thing is still sort of inside of you, right? So the important part is to sort of get to the root of it, and then you can sort of attack it from that point, right? That's one thing. And the whole thing can drop. Second, these desires may not drop because they're very strong within you, right? A fulfillment that you want to seek out. So another way to actually tackle that, it's called burning through the desire, meaning you actually go towards the desire with full force to the point where it naturally dies out, right? So that's another way. But to answer your question, Tenzin and Zhang, I would say the most important part is to make sure, are you creating resistance, which is going to later show up one way or another, or are you allowing for that to happen and seeing it through? Because it has to be tackled one way or another, right? So, yeah.
Okay, yes, thank you. Uh, I have heard these, the things you said in kind of like modern, you know, psychological context. Um, Now, in the those of you who are familiar maybe with this text, do you know how Lama Tsongkhapa will answer his own doubt in this text? Okay. Well, there, so Whack, what you had said, there, those points do make sense. But in the Dharma context, how Lama Tsongkhapa was, answered his own thing, is we differentiate between the sort of temporary and ultimate goals, right? So, on a temporary basis, these things like having a good rebirth, having, resources, and having a long life, they are useful for our overall project as a Dharma practitioner, right? There's this other stanza in the Bodhisattva Charyavatara by um, Shantideva saying, relying on the boat of a human body, use it to cross the great river of pain, right? So, especially when we think about all the kinds of existences in samsara, the human rebirth is a good one because we have the intelligence that's able to differentiate between right and wrong. We then have access to Dharma teachings, okay? And then not only to have a human rebirth, but to have sufficient resources that you can eat, right? You're not starving, you're not sick, right? And it would be especially good if you had enough resources to, you know, be able to take 10 days off and do a retreat, right? So some of these things, if used, can be used to further your practice, right? And then upon the basis of a good rebirth with good intelligence, good resources, long life, no sickness and all that, we then are practicing better, right? So it is not an end in itself, but it's a better basis to achieve the ultimate goals of liberation and enlightenment, right? But it would be, a mistake to think that we don't want those things at all, right? Because they are the ripening effects of virtue, right? So I remember my one of my friends, he's a comedian here in Honolulu. Many years ago, around Christmas time, right? You've heard of this saying, "It's better to give than to receive." Yeah. So he wrote a post on social media. He said, "It's better to give than to receive. Therefore, I don't give because I'm not selfish." Right? Okay. It's a joke. It's not true, but where it's coming from is, see, anyway, you guys get it. So the point is, the bodhisattvas, right, of the six perfections, first perfection is the perfection of generosity. So they're giving not to get material resources back, but they're giving from a free sense of altruism. But since the ripening effect of giving is wealth, what they call in the four bodies of the Buddha, there's the complete enjoyment body, the Sambhogakaya, right? And that Sambhogakaya, has has jewels and all this. And these things just happen due to the power of merit, not through, you know, slogging away at a kind of job or this kind of thing, right? So these ripening effects of virtue we want, um, well, they're going to happen sort of just by the way, whether or not we do it, and that's not our primary motive, but they'll come to us anyway. Do you know what I mean? Right? Okay. Then the second thing is, you know, these things that we're talking about, they can be beneficial for bodhisattvas to have, right? Because we can use them to benefit sentient beings, right? I've made this I was having a conversation with one of my friends, not Buddhist, but I was saying, in general, uh, I think it'd be great if His Holiness the Dalai Lama were a, centibillionaire like all these other, tech bros, right? Because with his motivation, what would he do with that? He would, do a lot of good in the world. The money he does receive through his charitable trust and all that, he then, helps out with a lot of the, when there's natural disasters in various parts of the world, particularly in India, he'll fund schools and anyway, a lot of very beneficial charitable projects, not I don't know, buying a second or third yacht or whatever, some other people who have that amount of wealth could be doing with it, right? Similarly, something like fame, I think it's very good that His Holiness the Dalai Lama is very famous because then that will mean more people come to his teachings and more people then will benefit, right? But for us, at the beginning of the path, if those things, fame, wealth, so forth, is done with a selfish motive or with attachment, then that just further binds us to samsara. But with the mind of bodhicitta, then those things can be used to, further us along the path, right? And then the other thing for us too that we should remember, I always think about this, is just how time consuming these samsaric experiences are. Okay. So there are a lot of new people who haven't been to my courses before, but maybe there's a few people who have. This is one of my favorite stories. Um, but it really illustrated to me how much a hold the samsaric pleasures had and still have on me, right? So again, this is a story about going out to eat. Okay, you caught me. I'm a foodie, right? But you have to understand, I was living in India for 20 years, and by now, there's good restaurants and many cities, very good food. I love Indian food. But you have to understand, in the monastery, Sera Monastery, where I was living, it was in rural India, like yeah, kind of in the middle of nowhere. And the food they would serve at the monastery, okay? You know dal, it's like lentils, right? Dal. Okay. So one day for lunch we would have rice and dal, and the next day we would have bread and dal. Like the naan bread. Okay. And one banana. Okay. That's it. Yeah. All right. Now, don't get me wrong, I love the Sarah dal. It's so good. It's really, really good. But okay, 10 years eating that every day for lunch. Okay. So then I started teaching in the center in Bangalore. Okay. Bangalore, big city. It was about 7 hours away from Seta. Okay. But then when you go to Bangalore, wow, it's a city of like 10 million people, more. So it has all these kinds of cuisines, right? Chinese food, uh, Italian food. And I tell you, I will be honest, The Mexican food, there are some Mexican food restaurants, but you guys, I think a lot of you in the Southwest, right? Or California, if you do go to India, don't get Mexican food. It's not as good as what you're getting. Okay? You have to be honest. But Italian food, there are some good ones. There's some really good Italian food. Okay? So anyway, I come to Bangalore for a weekend, and after the teaching, then the very kind people of the center, they would, take me out for a meal. And well, they came to know that you know, I'm a bit of a foodie. They took me to an Italian restaurant, and we found a place. It was close by to the center called Little Italy. I'll give them a shout out, Little Italy. Very nice food, pretty close to the center, all this. Okay. So then one day we go after the Sunday session. So we're going for lunch, and guess what? No karma. The restaurant is closed for renovations, right? And so I'm very disappointed. But these beautiful people of Bangalore, then instantly, three of them are on their phones. They're like, don't worry, we'll find you another restaurant. You know, we're here to save the day. Okay. So they find an Indian restaurant. Okay. So I'm like, okay, okay, let's go. Yes. All right. So we go there. But the thing is, it was cross town. And in a city of, I don't know, 10 million plus people, the traffic is horrible, horrible, even on a Sunday. So it takes us over an hour to drive there. Okay. The meal was good. Then we're driving back. And in the car, I mean, this is the guru's blessing. It just occurred to me, wow, I've just spent 2 extra hours of my precious human rebirth to get this meal. You know, next door to the Italian restaurant was a very good Indian restaurant, like very good, right? But, if I had just, okay, forget it, let's just go have Indian, no problem, and do it, then I get 2 hours. And in 2 hours, right, man, I could be meditating, I could be doing, frustrations, all these kinds of practices and collect like, so much merit and I don't know, right? So this to me, the big lesson was, these things in of themselves, it's not that they're bad, but they're so damn time consuming, you know? So for us, beginners on the path, right? Um, as we sort of talked about last week, those of you who are doing, an hour, even 2 hours of practice a day, I mean, that's amazing, right? It's great. It's much more than most people in the world are doing. But when we talk about the kind of, goals that we could achieve in this very life, with this very body that you have, you know, you could all become, enlightened in this life, right? It all depends on how you, choose to, allocate your time. So it is because these, samsaric pleasures, they are so enticing. It's very easy then to get distracted and spend a lot of time in their pursuit rather than doing things that would be more beneficial for our liberation, enlightenment. And that is why we see them as problematic. Not because something in and of themselves is problematic, because if our minds were different, then our whole relationship with those objects would be different. And then it wouldn't be so much a problem. You understand? So the problem isn't the object, the problem isn't the experience, the problem is our minds. Okay? So how then, we can make this practical, right? So sometimes it was very cute because at the intro courses in say Tushita Dharmasala or Kopan, right? There's like a lunch buffet, right? And then one person I remember, they were like, oh, well, if there's like 5 dishes on the buffet at lunch, does that mean I shouldn't take the one that I like? Right? No, so it's not like that. It's not like that. Um, so here's some more practical things. Okay. This good enough dear mentality. This is actually a story from Lama Yeshe back in the day. So Tushita Meditation Center in Dharamsala. Okay. Have any of you been? Have any of you been? Okay. So Matt, if you remember the old Gompa, okay, now there's a new Gompa. They built that, I don't know, maybe 17 years ago, something like that, or yeah, 16 years ago. Okay. They had an old Gompa that had a corrugated, you know, metal roof. Now it's very nice, right? But they had an old corrugated roof. And if you also know something about Dharamsala, the monsoon there, it rains so much that by the end of it, it's almost guaranteed that all your clothes are going to get moldy. It's like this, okay? So back in the day, there was a monk who was doing retreat at Tushita, and Lama Yeshe was there. And Lama Yeshe just comes in the room, and they start talking. And Lama Yeshe asks him, "Oh, so how is your retreat room?" And that monk was, "Yeah, it's okay, but when the rain hits the corrugated metal roof, it makes a lot of noise. There's a leak in the corner. The light switch doesn't work. One of my outlets doesn't work." But he's listing all this thing, and Lama Yeshe says, "Oh, good enough, dear." You get it? Good enough, dear. Ah. So what this means is, of course, there's always something more that can be done. I had an interesting conversation with a friend of mine who, well, he just bought a house last year. Actually, I was with two friends, and they just bought houses in the past year. And then one of my friends said it so succinctly. He's like, you know what? There's always something more to do. Like he replaced this, he regrouted the bathrooms, he's doing this, like now, right? So it's so true about samsara, actually. There's always something more you can do, right? There's always something you can improve, you can repaint this, you can, do that, you can do this. But to have this thought, good enough, dear, just saves you so much time, right? Okay, I love my beloved mother, okay? Now, I've been here for about a month, and there's the windows in the kitchen. Uh, my brother was also here, and he washed them, right? But in one part, there's a little bit of streak, right? Little streaks, right? So my mom, the past several weeks, was like, I gotta clean these windows again, right? So I look at the window, they're totally fine to me. I don't even see a streak, right? You with me? But she's like, oh, I gotta clean those. She then got a quotation from like some professional window washers, and it was so expensive and all this. So finally, a few days ago, last week, she then washed the windows, and then she comes to me and it's like, I finally washed the windows. Now it's good. I love her. I just jokingly said, "Hey, mom, you know the secret? It was still good even before you washed them." So, uh, this isn't to criticize. There's so many aspects of my life where I'm doing this too, right? It's very easy to see these things in others, maybe even easier than seeing in yourself. But the point is, as we go through life, it's, I think, very good to be able to keep this in mind, this kind of good enough dear. Oh, this is good enough. I don't need more. I don't and that sense of, contentment and having few needs and few desires is very, very useful for freeing up your time that you can then use for Dharma practice. Okay. Now, that being said, we do practice contentment for ourselves, right? So I need, little, but when it comes to others and helping others and benefiting others, then that's where we should be putting that striving mentality, right? Like Shantideva says, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, until then may I too remain to dispel the suffering of the world, right? So that is our main job, right? No longer just thinking about fulfilling my own aims, but striving to, uh, yeah, alleviate the suffering of others as long as there are others who suffer, right? Now, that being said, to avoid burnout, we also have to keep in mind that, when we say, may all sentient beings be free from suffering and the cause of suffering, you are also a sentient being. So don't ignore your own needs. And then we can, transform our ordinary actions through bodhicitta. So even, to take rest, right? So we don't burn out. Um, yeah, we can do this before we go to bed. We can even say, sleep with bodhicitta. Say that, purpose of my life is to benefit sentient beings. In order to do that, I need to achieve enlightenment. In order to do that, I need to practice the path. So in order that I can continue to study, practice, right? I need to have a healthy body and mind. And therefore, I'm going to rest. Therefore, I'm going to sleep, right? Therefore, I'm going to eat this food. Therefore, I'm going to go for a jog, right? Same things. So, and then, many of you, as Madonna said, we're living in a material world, right? So, even this, we can have a different kind of bodhicitta motivation as we do our work, right? Not just that I'm accumulating wealth, seeing wealth as something kind of as a good thing in its own, on its own, but to say, in order that I can continue my practice, um, I'm going to do this work or earn this money or make this investment or buy this apartment that I'm then going to, rent out. Um, and I know a few people who do that. They bought some property, they then rent it out, they then live in someplace in Asia where their living expenses are totally covered by the rent they're making back in the West. It's very skillful, right? Very skillful. So you should want to, retire as soon as possible, but not so you can just, sit on the beach and sip virgin pina coladas, but so you can use that time to practice. You can still, go on retreat, go attend teachings, and make a lot of progress along the path to enlightenment. Hmm? Now, that being said, remember, we're transforming ordinary actions. Now, even you do go to the beach, you can do that with bodhicitta too. I mean, I try to do that a few times a week now that I'm in Hawaii. But just one thing with that, just some advertising. The mantra Om Mani Padme Hum. Yes, you know this? Most famous mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. It says in the text, if you recite 10 malas of it, 1,000 Om Mani Padme Hum, and then you go in the water, then that body of water is blessed. And all the beings, the fish, the turtles, the seals, whatever you got, they get blessed too, right? So,
Why? Why is that? I never understood that. That saying some words apparently, because is it that creating like a vibration or something within your own sort of being that you're sort of sending out, uh or is it like something else?
well, okay. I will ask if we can have the questions for the end because actually I'm just looking at the time. I'm a little bit behind schedule. But let me just say like this. It is due to the power of the compassion of the Buddha. And while they're training on the path, they make different aspirations. Okay. And then based on that aspiration, they train, they practice, and they dedicate their merit for a long, long time. And for example, the medicine Buddha, they then made the aspiration that whoever then recites my name or does my practice, right, may they have special benefit of being free of illness. Okay. Um, then there's other mantras that then can bless the elements of earth, water, and wind.
Okay.
Yeah.
Wait, is that like free land Buddhism or something like peace land or something where you keep saying like a certain mantra, you'll be uh
Well, so yeah, that is a
pure
whole
land. Sorry, pure
yeah,
land.
yeah,
Yeah.
that is a whole other thing. They do have something like that. Within this tradition, there are, many more pure lands, and actually in this tradition, every Buddha has their own pure land, not just this particular Amitabha Buddha, that is more associated with that Pure Land Buddha. Now, it is relatively easy to gain access and be reborn in the Amitabha Pure Land, which is why that particular branch of Buddhism has become very popular. Um, yeah, so there's some similarities, but in this tradition, it goes even more than that. Like, yeah.
Okay. Thank you for answering that.
Okay. Okay. All right. So, as I mentioned, uh, then we're using this 8 verses of mind training as the kind of spine through which we will examine all of the mind training. So I know we did verse 1. We're going to skip over verse 2 for a second, or for a session, and skip to this verse 3. In all actions, I examine my mental continuum, and the minute a delusion arises, since it endangers myself and others, I forcefully confront and avert it. Okay. So I'm calling this an essential foundation for practice because this practice of basically always being mindful about what is going on in your mind and seeing, is there a delusion or, what's going on? And then when there are delusions, to apply the antidotes and, confront, avert, avoid those delusions. That is, in common with all of those three types of practitioner, right? So here, what we're essentially talking about is this kind of this mindfulness in daily life. So here, Shantideva said, I shall hold and guard my mind well. Without the discipline of guarding the mind, what use are many other disciplines? Okay. So in general, for some, practices, then some people, they have a discipline of, staying up all night, or, you'll see people lying on beds of nails or walking on hot coals, all these other kinds of things, right? Reciting mantras, doing prostrations, all this, right? But the essential practice, if we're not guarding our mind, means being able to identify when we're angry, when we have attachment, when we have greed, when we have jealousy, and then sort of applying the requisite antidotes to those disturbing emotions, then all those other practices, it's like not that useful in the end, right? So, and then Nagarjuna says something similar in the letter to a friend. Lord. So his friend actually is a king in ancient India. So he addresses him as Lord. It's not the Lord, not the same connotations that we have in other contexts. So Lord, mindfulness of that within the sphere of body, speech, and mind um, is taught to be the one path by which all Sugata, so that means Buddha, traveled. Apply yourself to this and maintain it well. All virtues will disintegrate with the deterioration of mindfulness. Okay. So if we're not, always sort of alert and vigilant about what's going on in our own mind, then, well, it can, it endangers myself and others, right? So how does it endanger oneself? Well, if then we have, say, anger arise and we don't apply the antidote, and then we're impelled to do a negative action like harming someone, well, it endangers ourself. By then, we create negative karma, which then will ripen as suffering in the future. And then, of course, there might even be sometimes like legal consequences that would extend to this life. Um, if we get upset with our romantic partner and we say something, nasty out of anger, we can also destroy our relationships. So it's not just, we'll experience something bad in future lives. Even we see negative consequences in this very life when we allow ourselves to be impelled into negative actions through our disturbing emotions. Then, endangering others, of course, we then come to harm others. Yeah. But even taking a step back, right? You see how we were talking about we need the temporary benefit of a good rebirth in our next life so we can continue to practice Dharma, right? So for a bodhisattva practitioner, you see, being reborn in the hell, it's not that the suffering or getting boiled in the molten copper or something like that is the main drawback to be reborn in hell. But for them, they're thinking of what the negative consequence will be on their future Dharma practice. Understand? And because if they then get reborn in the hell, they won't have access to Dharma teachings, right? They'll be in so much pain that they then can't, meditate. That will then take a lot longer for them to achieve the state of enlightenment. And that is what they then see as the great danger. You understand? Oh, okay. So, um, now, okay, hold on. We have this, right? We examine our mental continuum, and the minute a delusion arises, since it endangers myself and others, I shall forcefully confront and avert it. Okay, all right. Now, when I reflect on this practice on a very practical basis for us, really there's two things. And I think for us beginners, before we can, apply the antidotes and avert the delusions as soon as they arise, we first need to just create some space, right, in the mind that we are not in a reactive mode. Okay? You understand? Create some space. So in worldly context, you see, right? If you get angry, count to 10 before you respond, all this. That's very good advice, right? Because in the throes of that anger, when the anger has already arisen, the mind is too disturbed that we just have to avoid doing something with our body or our speech that is impelled by that negative, disturbing emotion. Do you understand? As Venerable Robina likes to say, zip your lips and keep your hands to yourself, right? Okay. So this actually, you see, there's some beautiful verses from Shantideva about this. And actually in his Bodhisattva Charyavatara, I think it's the fifth chapter, he talks about this guarding alertness. Okay. So there he says, whenever I have the desire to move my body or to say something, first of all, I should examine my mind and then, with steadiness, act in the proper way. When, just as I am about to act, I see that my mind is tainted with defilement, at such time sh I should remain unmovable like a piece of wood. Okay. So this is very good advice for us. No, even the mind is so, disturbed. We have anger, we have jealousy, we have whatever, right? Whatever's going on, it's easier to control the body and speech than it is to control the mind. So at that time, we just have to remain like a piece of wood means don't do anything. Yeah, don't open our mouth, don't say that thing back to them, don't harm them in some way, just remain like a piece of wood. Okay. So here, I invite you all to look in that fifth chapter of Bodhisattva Charyavatara. There's many, um, you know, beautiful situations, and it's a very, very good chapter in general. But for lack of time, I just want to go through a few scenarios, right? So first, again, Shantideva is saying, whenever there's attachment in my mind, and whenever there is a desire to be angry, I should not do or say anything but remain like a piece of wood. Very nice. Very nice. Okay. Then, whenever I desire material gain, honor, or fame, whenever I seek attendance or a circle of friends, and when in my mind I wish to be served, at all these times I should remain like a piece of wood. Okay. Now, remember, these are the desires for the eight worldly concerns just in relation to our own selfish desires, right? If you guys are already bodhisattvas and you're saying, I want some material gain so I can, uh, cure malaria or something like this, then great, right? But other times, we notice the desire for the worldly concerns is there, but we don't act on it. We remain like a piece of wood. Okay. Then last, whenever I'm eager for praise or have the desire to blame others, whenever I have the wish to speak harshly and cause dispute, at all such times I should remain like a piece of wood. Okay. So some of you might know, you know the Bodhisattva vows. Some of you might have the Bodhisattva vows. But within the Bodhisattva vow, the first one is actually, right, to praise yourself or criticize others out of a desire for, your good reputation or to tarnish someone else's bad reputation. That's the very first vow of a bodhisattva. Isn't that interesting? Mm. Okay. So at those such times, I should remain like a piece of wood. Okay. So now I'll tell you a little secret, okay? You see this title, How to Get the Most Out of the Course, okay? This, by the way, is just another way of saying homework. Okay, but it's a skillful means, right? No one wants to do homework, but I'm just putting it in another way, right? Skillful. How you can get the most out of this course is over the next week, try to keep a moment, keep a journal of these moments when the eight worldly concerns arise, right? So maybe at the end of the day, it's in general good practice to think back throughout the day and just notice, oh, yeah, the eight worldly concerns came up for me in this, and sort of, yeah, note it down. And then this whole piece of wood advice, let's try to practice that. Okay. You can also write those down in your journal. Yeah. I was about to call the manager to complain that my reservation wasn't honored, but okay. And then lastly, we have another uh, selection from the reading packet that you all have, Mahayana Thought Transformation by Longzop Rinpoche. Oh, and by the way, the last week's getting the most out of the course still continue with the 8 verses on a daily basis, and we'll get to the rest of them in the coming weeks. And next week, so this right at the end was just about creating space in the mind where we're not reacting. And then later we'll continue with this and talk about some of the actual antidotes to attachment and anger, especially. Okay, thank you. I have covered what I wanted to cover, and I'm pretty much on time. I know last week we went a bit over time, uh, which, it's good because you guys are showing you're interested in the material. But I'm also mindful, especially you are, what is it, 8:30 there, 8:25 for you in the, what was that, Central Time Zone?
Mountain,
Mountain?
mountain.
Okay. Learn something new every day. All right, Mountain Time Zone. That's nice. Although, hey, Hawaii Standard Time Zone. That's pretty nice too. Come on. Just joking. Just joking. Okay, Scarlett.
Hello. So I wanted to, I guess, refine when I do this action. So today, I saw an elderly woman, and I was really, really, I never really had this feeling of just so compassionate. Like I couldn't, I just wanted to give her everything that I had. And it was a really interesting feeling. And so, like I gave her like what I had. Um, but I didn't know how to kind of do that kind of thought where I'm not doing it for me, but I'm doing it for others. And then a conflicting thought that comes up, like as I was listening to you talk, you said something to the effect about, I'm doing this on behalf of all sentient beings. I think my mental block is like, am I not like being presumptuous to say something like that? Because like, what makes me think that like everybody, like, why should I be doing something on behalf of everybody? Maybe they don't want me to be giving this money to this woman. Like, some of my friends just have a problem with that.
I remember you from a previous session because I
Did
think
I
you were,
bring that topic up about like,
I think you did. Yeah.
because it still conflicts me.
Yeah. 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 Okay. So, yes. Okay. So we gotta have to keep a few things clear. Okay. So, the language, I don't think it's not so much I'm doing this on behalf of others, but I'm doing it for others, right? So, there's an important distinction there because essentially what you're doing, right, with this bodhisattva training, with the training along the path to enlightenment, you are developing all of your good qualities to their highest potential, and you're also eliminating all of the faults of the mind, and eradicating them forever. Okay. When you achieve that state of the full development of all your good qualities and the complete abandonment of all the faults of the mind, that's what Buddhahood is. You'll become Buddha, right? When you become Buddha, then you'll be in no longer thinking, oh, what should I do today? But you will spontaneously and effortlessly, without thinking, just emanate countless bodies that are going to be benefiting sentient beings, uh, until, as we said, as long as space remains, as long as sentient beings remain, right? You'll be benefiting them. Okay. So this thing, oh, maybe people don't want me like,
Like for
um,
example,
yeah,
my neighbor
yeah,
and
yeah,
I
yeah,
had
yeah,
this
I remember
like
your neighbor.
this conflict just recently, and I just kind of, that's why I'm like, she would never, like she doesn't believe in giving money to people on the street.
Yeah.
Like she thinks that when you give it to them, they go and they indulge in their bad habits. But I just kind of feel like listening to various teachers They just say to give. Just you don't think about what they're going to do with it. Just give it. But I'm conflicted to say on behalf because she would not want me to do that.
Yeah.
Like
So
she
so
wouldn't
you,
do that.
you you're not yes, she would not do that, but hey, your neighbor, unless they're a Buddha, they're not always going to be doing the best thing, nor will they have the best opinion about what you ought to do, right? So you can't put too much weight into what just anyone would think, okay? Right? So that's why I say you're doing this, in order to benefit her. You're not doing it on her behalf. It's not that then, you're asking her for her permission, but nonetheless, you're doing this in her best interest. Now, she might be confused as to and many people are confused as to the actual cause of happiness and the actual cause of suffering. And that's why people are engaging all the time in things that are actually not really fulfilling what is in their best interest, right? But that's another point. Now, I did want to also say this. There is something to be said to combining the compassion with wisdom, okay? And you know, if you did have something to give, if there was some, economist or social scientist or sociologist or someone who then would, do some research and said, hey, you know what? Actually, to just give cash to people on the street, that's not the best way to practice charity. Instead, we should, and then fill in the blank. I don't know, offer free healthcare, buy them a meal, buy a home. I don't know, whatever it is. If they come up with some determination of that, okay, then we would say, yeah, I want to benefit them in the best way. And if we can determine through some kind of analysis that just giving them cash on the street isn't the best way, we would do that instead. A bodhisattva would do that instead because they're trying to do the thing which is most beneficial. You understand? So
Yeah.
there's always a combining the compassion with wisdom. And if there is a case where, someone is obviously drunk and they come to you and they're like, "Oh yeah, I gotta buy another bottle," and you know that they're probably going to do it. In that case, you ought not to give them. Or if someone comes to you and says, "Hey, you know what? Uh, I want to kill someone. I want to buy a gun. Can you give me some money so I can, kill this person?" You also have a positive obligation not to give, to the point where if you were to give them a means for them to then commit murder, you would then be, partially culpable for that, right?
Hmm.
So it's not just then, oh, yeah, we give whatever they want, whenever they want, like this. We do have to combine it with some wisdom.
Hmm.
Okay. Um, but I guess the point is, um,
Yeah. Like,
sometimes, yeah.
sorry, what do I say in my head that, like you talked about, like when, you talked about the four ways of giving, and there's like a bodhisattva way of giving. So if I want to practice bodhisattva way, and of course, like you said, like I don't want to endanger myself when I'm giving like money. So this woman, this elderly woman, I was completely just it. I don't know what got over me, but I just felt so much compassion for her. But I felt safe to like give something to her that she's not going to harm me. But kind of I walked away and I didn't know how I would. And like I just kind of said, may all her needs be met. And I just pretended in my head that I was giving her like millions of dollars.
Nice.
So like whatever needs she has, because she did tell me a little bit of her financial situation. So I did that, but I kind of want to refine it.
Thank you. Yes, very good. Well, so a little bit out of time, but there is this story from the ancient Indian texts where a sangha encountered this dog. Okay, anyway, maybe no time to get into
Is the
that.
one that he used his tongue or something?
Yes, yes, yes.
Okay.
Okay, good. So it says that although Asanga was just viewing one dog, he used that then to develop compassion for all sentient beings. Okay. So although the kind of proximate object of your giving might only be one sentient being, you can then infer to the generality. You know what I mean? Okay, so I'll be very practical. One way to do a little bodhicitta motivation for this, although you might giving to one, but to extend to all sentient beings, is to say, purpose of my life is to benefit all sentient beings. In order to benefit them in the best way, I must achieve enlightenment. Therefore, I need to complete the collections of merit and transcendental wisdom. Therefore, I'm going to do this practice of the perfection of generosity. Okay? Now, the perfection of generosity is, right, with this wish to achieve enlightenment, it's not just a mere giving, but it is then to sort of, um, with total non-clinging to the object, right? Non-clinging to the object, and also, here's some bonus points, also non-clinging to the karmic kind of repercussions you'll give. So you would think, I'm going to give this so I can accumulate the merit, but I mean, one thing you could do is even the merit I accumulate from this virtuous action, I may that then ripen on others, right? Okay, that's one way. You can also say, and so due to this merit, may I be the sole source of all the material needs of all the sentient beings in the entire universe for as long as space remains. Hmm?
Yes.
That's going to then create the cause that then, you'll be like, Shantideva has this thing. May I be like a wish-fulfilling tree and a wish-granting jewel and all this, right? Now, from that, what that is going to enable is sometime in the future, you're going to be extremely wealthy.
I don't know about that.
No, no, I mean, in the future, it could be eons from now. Okay,
Right.
could be.
I would love that though. Yeah. Because
But
then I can
why?
help. Because then I can help
There
some
you
people.
go. There you go. Okay, so if it's that, then good. If it's that, then good. Okay. Yes. So have that. May I be able to supply all the material needs to all the sentient beings in the entire universe for as long as samsara remains. And then just as you did, it's very good.
Okay.
Don't just think you're giving whatever, $5, but like, you know, billions, trillions, like everything, and not just money, but food and clothing and medicine and everything, this, just mentally imagine that. And then, as I mentioned a little bit before, keeping in mind the three circles, the giver, the gift, and the act of giving, yeah, or the
Mm-hmm.
recipient, you'll see it both ways. All those three are dependent origination.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into this in the fifth or sixth session if you haven't gone into emptiness teachings, right? But for example, right, right now, this mala, okay? I mean, this is just a mala, right? Rosary. Now, if I were to, for this mala to become a gift, I need someone to give it to, right?
Yeah.
And then I'll need to do the giving.
Yes.
So this mala becoming a gift requires the three, me, the object, and a recipient. But if those three aren't coming together, then this is just a mala and not a gift. Do you understand?
Yeah.
If it's just me here, our goal in the cave, there's no one for me to give it to.
Yes.
It's just a mala, not a gift. So keeping in mind that dependently originating nature of the giving, then is also, maybe double bonus points. And then at
Yes.
the end, you would dedicate, oh, due to this merit and all the merit accumulated over 3 times by countless sentient beings and numberless Buddhas, may I quickly attain enlightenment for the benefit of all sentient beings. And then you can, add on to that, like Shantideva says that, may all beings in the world plagued by sufferings of body and mind obtain an ocean of happiness and joy by virtues of my merits. Um, may no living creature suffer, commit evil, be hungry, be thirsty, blah, blah, blah. You can expand on that.
I'm going to replay this and write it all down, put it in my purse. So that I can remember it and then I can just be habit. But thank you very much because again, yeah, I had this conflict with my neighbor recently about this whole act of giving money. So it was perfect timing that I got a chance to kind of get your thoughts on the whole how I'm supposed to be saying it. But thank you.
Okay. Well, so just one. Okay, we're a little bit over time, but just one thing, because I do remember you. I do remember you were having some conversations with your neighbor. It must have been like over a year ago.
Yeah, and then we had it again recently.
Yeah. So
And we
so
got
here's
into a conflict again.
so here's the thing. Okay, and this is for all of us, right? Because yeah, people have different opinions. Okay. So just one framework with your neighbor. Okay. Does she think that you shouldn't give because she's lacking in compassion for the person on the street, meaning they don't deserve to be helped? Or does she think that, or he, I don't know if it's a he or she, or does he or she think that giving the money isn't the most effective way to help them?
Yeah, that's what she says. It's not the most effective way
Okay,
to help.
okay, then okay, so just mentally for all of you, right? There's going to be two camps, right? You shouldn't give, then try to find out why. And just in general, when we come across people with different opinions, rather than getting, defensive and no, it should be like this and arguing, try to ask more about their opinion. Okay, so now we know that she does have some level of compassion for the person on the street, but she thinks giving them cash money, isn't the most effective way to help. Okay, that's good. Then, uh, you can ask her, well, what would be a more effective way to help? And probably more importantly, try to identify some research that led her to have this opinion. In recent years, there has been a whole a lot of analyses done on the best way to help and this kind of effective altruism. You probably heard of that. It's a whole field, effective altruism, and they study uh, what is the best way. There were some studies in Africa, actually, where they found that in certain situations, giving the cash payment did help, but it was I don't want to misrepresent the research. I think it was like, but after a few months, the kind of, it like stabilized and they weren't increasing, right? So it's the people in the very most dire states to get them, you know, to some level, it's most effective. But after a certain point, there's probably more effective things to do. Anyway, it'd be good then to just understand where she's coming from that. And, you know, you don't have to convince her. Just listen to her. Say thank you. I'll look into that. And then, you don't have to tell her what you're doing,
Yeah. Yeah, thank you very much.
right?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay,
Could I just quickly ask one thing, Tenzin? Just
sure.
quickly. Don't I know you have to go. To be I'm looking at this class and there's a few issues that I'm running into here, because like this sort of class is very good, it's very beneficial practically, and I get it. Like it could be very good, but I don't see how this is priming anybody for any sort of self-insight. And because the way that this is becoming very similar to an Abrahamic religion. You know what I mean? Like even the question with the neighbor issue, bro, that's fine. That's cool and it'll be beneficial. But if people don't even know what they are, right? They haven't done enough. There's no foundational work in this class that you put in that to find out what is the thing that's clinging, right? That when you say, oh, you have to make space within the mind, these people they don't know what you're talking about. Nobody knows this. So the way that this is going, it's very dangerous. It can become problematic because you're not going back to the root, which is the self. You're just tightening up different ego things, which could be beneficial. But I personally don't see, maybe I don't know because you have a future plan, but there's no priming for the self if people don't know what they even are. You're creating something else that they think they are to clinging to something else that they think they're not clinging to, and now it becomes like an academic study. Like it's to me, what I'm noticing is very dangerous, but useful in a practical psychology level, right? Because these questions that she's talking about, right, within the feelings and the neighbor, that should not like that's you know what I mean? Like that's cool. It's good that you answer the question, but it has nothing to the way that you should develop from the self, and that's gonna manifest automatically into these answers. I know that's gonna take time. Obviously, it can't happen, but you're not even giving the basis of what needs to happen in order to get there. You're starting the path from a different, you know what I mean? I can go to Christianity. They can say, bro, go help your neighbor. What's the difference? Right? So when you say the clinging, the mind, the space, go a little more in depth with that, right? Because you're spending an hour talking about you going with your mom to a dinner, which is cool. It was a good story. But if the class is really what you say it is, make it that. If it's not, let the people know. So then that way I don't have to waste my time, right? Because I can do different things for psychology. So I just want to make sure that you let us know what your intention is for this class and what we can get out of it at the end. That's all I want to know. Not to be rude or anything.
Okay. So yeah, the subject matter of what we were going to cover in this course was on the announcement of the course that came out when you signed up for it. And in the last course, I did talk about the framework with which we are using it. So, of course, there are a variety of people and who each have different needs and all that. And so if you believe that this has been a waste of your time, I am very sorry for that. And maybe this isn't the course for you. And I hope you find what you are looking for your development and growth.
I just asked what do you hope
So
people get from this class? That's it.
yeah, so I'm not sure you're here. I think you're here last week, but all of that I think was described
All right, I'll look it
in
over.
the beginning of last week's session. So yeah, this is yeah, about the mind training. Um, yeah,
Yeah, so sorry for that. Because bro, if it's
yeah,
rooted in fear, man, all they're doing is just a surface level. They're not getting to the root. If that's not being looked at, exposed, how is that supposed to be any sort of transformation? That's just becomes a psychology class, right? That's the issue that I have. So just giving you a little heads up, right? Maybe it's not what I'm thinking, but that's pretty much it.
okay. So yeah, thank you for your input. And I will see, those of you who want to continue with the class, I'll see you next week. And yeah, all the best. Take care.